But some of the guys who go there want to go there because they want to continue to abuse Muslims, including people who literally believe in the Crusades.
The guy who thinks Jesus is going to come back once he kills all the Muslims and Jews.
At Gaza's Nasser hospital, doctors are struggling to keep 4-month-old Zainab alive.
First, as a mother, it breaks your heart.
Images of skeletal Palestinian children like Zainab sparking outrage around the world, but Israel is casting doubt on claims of famine. Trying to get food in Gaza can be deadly. The UN says more than 1,000 Palestinians have been killed trying to access the limited supplies Israel's allowed into Gaza, distributed by an Israeli and American-backed private aid group.
As famine continues to afflict the people, specifically the children of Gaza, it has become increasingly difficult for aid to reach those who need it the most. Cenk, and also to our audience, I know that was really hard to watch, but we've spoken about this on the show before. Famine is not just a thing that unfortunately happens. It is something that is done to a people. It is a weapon of genocide and colonization. So Cenk, before we get into some of the people behind this apparent deliberate initiative, what are your thoughts going into this story?
Yeah, so earlier in the show, we talked about a story of when Donald Trump in Scotland said that, yeah, he saw the pictures of starving children and he was bothered by it. Apparently, right after that, Benjamin Netanyahu demanded a call with Trump and then took him to task, saying, how dare you say they're starving? I said they're not starving, get back in line. Isn't that amazing that the Israeli prime minister can talk to our president that way? That he demands a call and demands that he repeat Israeli lies about what's happening instead of reality, and demands that he not care about starving children. Now, the report is that Trump yelled back at him. I hope he did. But either way, we continue to fund this slaughter. But not only that, as Yaz is about to tell you, we're sending in some former military guys. And it's not surprising. Some of the people who signed up are wonderful people like retired Lieutenant Colonel Aguilar, who came back horrified and told stories that are chilling that we can get into here as well. But some of the guys who go there want to go there because they want to continue to abuse Muslims, including people who literally believe in the Crusades. And so that's the story Yaz is about to tell.
Yeah, it's like Indiana Jones. All right, I do want to get into why the Palestinians are not receiving aid. It has a lot to do, or like everything to do really, with who is distributing, or rather not distributing the aid. So first off, it has to do with the GHF, or the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a supposed aid effort backed by Israel and the United States. And you might be thinking, that sounds funny because Israel and the United States are the ones funding the ongoing genocide and colonization of Gaza. So why would they also be the ones to fund aid getting to people, even though like the people are starving and they're killing them and all these things? So anyway, that's a great question. In an email, The Intercept had this to say about the GHF. It says, in May, Israel put a mysterious new nonprofit organization called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation in charge of aid distribution in Gaza. Since then, more than 1,400 Palestinians have been killed while desperately seeking food from GHF aid sites. After GHF took over, the 400 aid distribution centers in Gaza were reduced to 4, and Israeli troops have routinely opened fire on crowds of starving people desperately waiting for food. Doctors Without Borders has accused GHF of orchestrated killing and dehumanization and said its aid distribution sites are essentially death traps. It probably doesn't help that the GHF is being led by modern day crusaders, cosplayers of the Knights Templar, who believe that they're fighting to preserve Christendom from Arab Muslim incursions. So Johnny Taz Mulford, for example, is a team leader at a Gaza aid distribution site, but he's got tattoos that suggest he is the last person who should be distributing aid to a Muslim majority population. Those tattoos across his chest, if you can see them, and on his arms, notably the medieval style crosses, the 1095, and the coat of arms. They all signify his membership in the Infidels, which is a biker group for veterans of US wars and private military contractors such as Blackwater. So Mulford has posted an image to his Facebook page suggesting that he is a Christian Zionist, and he has shared a video on his Facebook page mocking Palestinian protesters. The Infidels frequently co-opt medieval Crusader imagery, including symbols that have come to be associated with extreme right-wing Christianity. The 1095, for example, that harkens back to Pope Urban II, who in the year 1095 called for the First Crusade. So founded in 2006 by an American mercenary in Iraq, the group claimed to support the war against terror and the country's efforts against Islamic extremism. They say they do not support the jihadist movement. So meanwhile, senior UN aid officials met with the GHF chair on Wednesday, and that is the first time that that's happened since the GHF took over aid distribution in May. So this is reporting from Axios, and it says Israel blocked the UN and its partner organizations from bringing any aid into Gaza for 2 months prior to the launch of the foundation, and it's continued to restrict most aid except what is flowing through the GHF. As Israel prepares for a new offensive, the Trump administration wants to expand GHF's operations in Gaza and push the UN to cooperate with the organization. The meeting was unconventional. No phones were allowed in the meeting, and nothing in the meeting could be attributed to its participants. The only decision that was made during the meeting was that both sides would stop attacking each other in the media. Nothing about cooperation in Gaza was actually decided upon. So according to the UN, the GHF does not adhere to the humanitarian principle of neutrality, and they warned that its operations are endangering Palestinian civilians who must cross Israeli military lines to reach the GHF aid centers. And over the last 2 months, hundreds of Palestinians have been killed on their way to the aid centers, and at least 20 more in the aid centers themselves, per the UN. So this is a horrible story. I hated putting this whole thing together, and I just want to point out some things that our viewers might have missed. Like they reduced the aid centers from 400 to just 4 of them, and then they put them on the other side of IDF lines. So like they're really not trying to help people. And then in the meantime, that what Cenk was mentioning earlier, Netanyahu is completely denying that this is even a thing, that people are starving over there. When there's footage, we can see it. We can see it for ourselves that these people, these children, these babies are starving and aid cannot get to them. Meanwhile, Netanyahu is also going on podcasts, talking to the Nelk boys, saying that Hamas is taking all the aid. What are we gonna do? There's only so much we can do, It really is, it's hard to even conceptualize the fact that Israel and the United States are funding this genocide. Israel is planning a ground attack allegedly, and at the same time they're saying we'll also distribute aid to these people who we are actively, pointedly trying to exterminate. And that's a thing that that people buy still, even though it really just makes no sense. Maz, what are your thoughts on this?
I thought the strategy was to get rid of Hamas. That was their strategy. We're gonna get rid of Hamas. And 2-3 years later, after killing 60,000 people, they say there's still more Hamas now taking the food. So this is the greatest military in the Middle East, one of the greatest militaries in the world, armed by the greatest military in the world. And they have not been able to get rid of Hamas, who now is stealing their food. That's what they're claiming we should believe. And to your point, the way you distribute food in a humanitarian way is you have several points where people can go to, 400 points they had before. You bring that down to 4, and you put in those fences, and you treat these people like animals. Animals are treated better. And then you're telling me that you're not committing genocide. You're telling me that you're not intentionally killing people. You're telling me that I'm not seeing what I'm seeing with my own eyes. It is preposterous. It is, heartbreaking. And the irony of these workers for the GHF who are hardcore Christians. By the way, the leader is this guy Johnny Moore, who is another crazy Christian guy, because the guy who was hired originally to run it said this is not a humanitarian operation. He quit. And in June of this year, just a month ago, before they got going, they threw this guy in, Johnny Moore, who I think was like a publicist, or he does some sort of, he had no experience running an organization like this. So these people, the irony is these people like the guy you just pointed out, who's working at the GHF, who's got all those tattoos. A lot of these people are these crazy Christian, evangelicals who think that, the world, Jesus will come back only when the Muslims and the Jews have a fight and then the Armageddon happens. So in a way, they want the Jews to die too, in a way. And they clearly want the Muslims to die because they just want Jesus to come back. So that's who's distributing food for you folks. The guy who thinks Jesus is going to come back once he kills all the Muslims and Jews.
Yeah. So first of all, Israel's become the Stanford prison experiment on a national scale, because not only are the Palestinians being abused, but unfortunately, a lot of the Israelis have taken on the IDF and certainly their politicians. Their citizens are more mixed, right? But have taken on the role of the prison guard, the cruel, despicable prison guard. And the occupation has gone on for 58 brutal years. No, this conflict did not start on October 7th. It started in 1948 and in 1967 when Israel took Palestinian land over and over again and drove them from their land with extreme violence, and then decided to occupy their land for 58 years. Okay, now we bring in the Americans. Now, normally when you bring in the Americans, I was hoping when I was a kid, I believed this, that okay, here come the good guys, and we're gonna do some good things. Now, that's still true in a lot of ways. We give a lot of aid, or we used to before Donald Trump, to the rest of the world. And we've saved millions and millions, tens of millions of people from getting AIDS, malaria, all sorts of diseases. We've delivered in natural emergencies for across the world. We've done some great things as America. We always, a lot of times focus on the bad stuff, as we're gonna get to here in a second. But I want you to know there are good Americans that are trying to do the right thing as well. In fact, one of them is a guy that I mentioned earlier in this story, retired Lieutenant Colonel Aguilar, who went as part of this group. And he told a story that was so amazing that I even had trouble believing it. And then I saw the pictures. I'm like, oh my God, everything he said is true, right? Because it was so over the top. It's this little kid who's starving, skin and bones, comes up to him and sees if they have any food left over. He says, no, I'm sorry, we don't. But he's speaking English, the kid doesn't understand. But overall, the kid gets it, that they're out of food. Then the kid says, apparently in Arabic, shukr, like thank you. And that's a word that Aguilar had learned. And then the kid actually even kisses his hand and says thank you in English. And then he's got pictures of it, right? It's amazing. And he's told this story in right wing, left wing, middle wing, shows all over the place, right? And so this poor kid, and he's breaking his heart, and the kid starts walking away. The Israelis kill him. He's like, no, oh my God, what'd you do that for? As he's walking away, they murder the kid because it's a slaughterhouse. And some people like Aguilar have their heart broken over it, come back and tell us, oh my God, we gotta stop. Then there are other guys like the guy that's featured in this story who went there to do cruelty. So guys, having a cross on your body is no problem. Nobody's against Christians, that's crazy talk. So as progressives, we defend your religious rights no matter what they are, right? But a Crusader cross means I like the Crusades, when the Christians went to Muslim land and killed them and tried to take their land, okay? Back when Christians were doing that instead of Israel, okay? Well, that's a weird thing to celebrate, right? And so a lot of these guys were in Afghanistan and Iraq, and look, obviously they were affected by that experience, and they hate Muslims, and apparently they want to kill more of them, right? So it's like when Pete Hegseth has it, that's already bad enough, that's our Secretary of Defense. But I know you're not gonna stop it over that, and people are gonna get emotional and go, oh, it's just a cross, it's just a cross. There's different kinds of crosses, but it's a different type of thing when you send that guy who loves the Crusades to the Middle East, pretending to feed the Palestinians, and then you see 1,400 of them murdered while either getting food or leaving from getting food. And you know the 1,400 is more than all of October 7th. October 7th was 1,200. A third were military and 2/3 were civilians. In this case, all 1,400 civilians massacred while trying to get food for their starving families. This is some deeply, deeply sick, immoral things. And then finally, on the 1095, you're thinking, okay, is that a big deal? I mean, he had the date of the original Crusades. I get it. He loves the Crusades. He loves the idea of killing Muslims and taking their land, right? So, well, him and Netanyahu have that in common. But no, the 1095 is a big deal. It's a code for like the most psychotic of them. Breivik, the mass killer in Norway, also was obsessed with 1095, and so was the Christchurch killer in New Zealand. Both deeply, driven by a deep hatred of Muslims and try to kill as many human beings as possible. To send that type of maniac into the Middle East to, in his mind, do another crusade, I mean, it doesn't get any sicker than that. The UN was doing was doing as good a job in trying to feed the Palestinians as you could possibly do under those enormously difficult circumstances. Israel spread nothing but lies about the United Nations and the wonderful people trying to feed the Palestinians. Unfortunately, the American government, a lot of times the American media, helped perpetuate those lies. Now the American media says, oh, our bad, they were all lying, but too late, they took the UN out and they've sent in IDF Gestapo and wannabe crusaders from America to go butcher those people instead of feeding them. This is one of the worst humanitarian catastrophes of our lifetime. And unfortunately, we're all being made to finance it with our hard-earned money. It's disgusting.
Yeah, and you did mention Pete Hegseth and that he also has one of those crusade medieval style crosses tattooed on him. He just tweeted a video from a CNN segment about the crusade for Christian domination in the age of Trump, and he retweeted it with the caption, all of Christ for all of life. So that just happened. So that's, that's reassuring to know that that is where our leaders stand.
Yeah, for us Americans who are not Christian fundamentalists, so that this is our government saying, we don't care about you. This is only for, not just for Christians, but lunatic Christian fundamentalists. That's what this country's for. I don't think that's what this country's for at all. I hope these monsters get voted out of office as soon as humanly possible. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.